You all ready to join me today in our trip to outer space?
Yeah.
Albert Shivers.
The Matrix doesn't have him.
That's very true.
Come along quietly or not.
They don't have to like it, but they're gonna see what happens.
Goodbye, wimps.
And now, without further ado,
from Albert Shivers.
The general concept is that creativity flourishes in an atmosphere of freedom.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. I am, as I've always been, Albert Shivers, and on this episode, Luke and Andrew are finally back to do an episode. We've had a hard time getting it together, but here we are. And on this episode, the three of us are going to talk about award shows and the politics therein. So we're just going to jump right into the episode. I don't have much to say for this one, but if you're bored, go check out what I'm up to on Instagram. I'm pumping out a lot of new art. And you can also check out albertshivers.com and visit the Albert Shivers Artist Patreon page. Yada, yada, yada. Let's get to the episode with Luke and Andrew. Enjoy.
This is Sandy Becker saying, keep cooking with Crisco. It's all vegetable. It's digestible.
I'm Tony Viagra, the gangster comedy. I listen to the Planet Shivers podcast, and you better too.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Planet Shivers podcast, and I am excited to finally have Luke and Andrew back on the show again. Thanks, guys, for coming on.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.
So today we're going to cover award ceremonies and the politics therein. And I think we'll get the elephant that's in the room out of the room right away. We are one day shy of a week away from the Oscars at the time of recording this. And amongst all the hoopla and glitz, there was something that really stole the headlines, which was Will Smith getting up on stage and smacking Chris Rock after Chris Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. I definitely have my opinions on it, but let's hear from you guys first, and then I'll jump in.
Okay, well, this kind of ties back into some of our previous episodes where we discussed comedy and what has aged well and what hasn't. One of the reasons that Rock's joke about Jada Pinkett Smith would be considered offensive is who was the target of the punchline. If we go back to the old days, like where you had jokes where people make fun of trans people by having a white straight guy fall in love with what he thinks is a beautiful woman, only it turns out that she's a trans woman, and then he does the whole throwing up and showering to cleanse himself and everything. Back then, the punchline of that joke is, oh, it's funny because trans people are freaks. And that's why that joke hasn't aged well. So, but whereas if you have Don Rickles making a joke, I love black people, without them we'd have no Olympics. That joke isn't making fun of black people, that's making fun of the way American society has used black people. So it's more a jab at the society as a whole. So that joke has aged well. So when you have Chris Rock joking about Jada Pinkett Smith losing her hair, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he didn't know about her condition and thought that she was doing an artistic choice. In that case, it was just a joke at her fashion sense, in which case it wouldn't be offensive. But if he was aware of her condition and he was making, which is outside her control, and made fun of her anyway, that was a jerk move on his part. That being said, that does not justify Will Smith going up on stage and slapping him. It's like, if you have a gripe with a guy, can't you talk it out? Just because Rock was being a jerk doesn't justify you being a jerk too. You could have just approached him after the show and, in private, and said quietly, please don't make fun of my wife like that. This is really hurting her. That was a bullying tactic. Do not do that again. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, especially with Will Smith having as many social media outlets that he has. He could have put a comment on Twitter, about how hurtful that statement was, about his wife. But I mean, this isn't the Old West. This isn't John Wayne calling the guy out of the saloon for making a comment about his lady. This is 2022, and you can, and especially Chris Rock, who you can go back to the 90s and see pictures of him and Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. So they're obviously friends, or at least acquaintances from years back. And even if he was even going back to the days like when Sammy Davis Jr. or Richard Pryor would make jokes about John Wayne, he never went up to him and gave him a knuckle sandwich at a comedy roast. So I do feel that Will Smith was very in the wrong, I'm sure Chris Rock, who came from Saturday Night Live and has a great knack for improvisation. I'm almost sure he didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to stick it to Jada Pinkett. I'm going to get her." I don't think he meant it that way. If and I also understand that it also could Will's reaction could also have been from his previous film role, where it was assumed that he used some method acting approaches when playing the role of that he won the Oscar for that night, Richard Williams. So he could have still been in that mindset, but still, I don't think that gives him an excuse. But that's just one man's opinion.
Okay. For me, I have a predisposition to side with the comedian most all the time. And I don't know much, but what I do know is that I believe that Chris Rock, he didn't know about the alopecia. Mm-hmm. That's what I understand. So therefore, it's just a joke. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to bring up something else, which is that I don't know exactly how long ago. This is April 2nd of 2022. At least a couple of weeks ago, if not a little more, a law just got passed that doesn't allow, or somehow supports not allowing employers to be judgmental over the hair of African American people. They can't discriminate based on hair. So that has been a sore point in that community, natural hair and haircuts in general. So, assuming that Chris Rock does not know about the alopecia, there is a part of me that does understand why she may have been upset. Forget Will for a second. Because Will laughed initially. Yes. I've seen it.
Yes.
I saw it.
We all did.
Yeah, we all saw it.
So, let's call a spade a spade. He laughed initially. But anyway, I can understand her not finding it funny. But in the end, it was a joke. This is what, over the past couple of years, I haven't watched the Oscars, but I always watch The Comedian. And over the past couple of years, it has gotten more roasty. I feel like Ricky Gervais, his couple, it's gotten more roasty. And I don't have a problem with that. And everybody else that Chris Rock roasted rolled with it. Because that's the other thing that social media and the news twists things, because all we see is a slap. We don't see everybody laughing before the slap. All the other people he poked at, they were fine. Nobody jumped up and there was only Will on that stage. So while I get it, that was just extreme, and it's hard for me to believe that those two guys, being as big as they are, Chris Rock, successful comedian, Will Smith has been in many comedies, including his own sitcom. It's hard for me to imagine that they are not even cordial enough to not have that happen. Like, they have to know each other somewhat.
I read
to be able. I'm sorry,
No,
but to be able to do what you said, or what you said of dealing with it privately. So, I have one more point to add, but I want you to say what you have to say.
I've read, in regard to being cordial and everything, I've read some people arguing in Will's defense that maybe he wasn't as angry with Rock as he was at himself, in lieu of the fact that he did laugh with everybody else, and they looked at Jada, realized that she was hurt, and he's like, oh shoot, I screwed up, now I have to overcorrect.
Mm-hmm.
But again, still doesn't justify what he did.
Yeah.
So his anger in that situation may have been two-pronged. He was angry at Rock, and he was angry with himself.
Mm-hmm.
But still bad overreaction.
Let's put our tinfoil hats on for a minute and explore. Is there any chance that this was not real?
That's what I thought at first. Honestly, when I saw that, I thought it's a stunt. They planned it out. The stuff like that happens at the Oscars from time to time. Like I was just like, oh, this is a joke. But I mean, if it was real, I mean, you're telling me that there was no security or valets or there's nobody saying, Mr. Smith, you can't go to the stage right now.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, he just walked up there and just cracked him. Nobody so I mean, he just walked up to the stage with ease.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't to me what stopped it from what kind of put the kibosh on it for being a stage for me is when I heard his keep my wife's name went from his seat. I was just like, that doesn't sound like something you see if it was stage.
Yeah.
The one thing that so I had that possibility brought up to me, and it made me think about it. And one thing that I've noticed is that if you watch the videos of it, there's only one angle of it that we're seeing. This is the Oscars. There's cameras everywhere.
Right.
I have no horse in this race at all.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just here to stir the pot.
Yeah.
But why are we only seeing one angle of this huge thing? Why are we only getting one angle of it in an auditorium full of cameras? So that's my only little throw it and run thing. I don't know. I mean, if you put a gun to my head, I don't think it was staged.
But it could have. But at the same time, it could have been.
It's like,
how about this? They'll put a gun to our head. Okay, so let's pretend we all have a gun to our head. Was it staged or not? Our answer is yes.
Yes.
So let's transition to somebody who was very celebrated at the Oscars that you guys wanted to bring up. Let's talk about, since our last podcast recording, we've lost a lot of famous people. One of them was Sidney Poitier. So for you guys as actors, talk a little bit about him.
Okay. I've seen several movies with Sidney Poitier. His Oscar-nominated performance in The Defiant Ones. I recently saw his Oscar-winning role in Lilies of the Field. To Sir with Love, and a few others that I'm blanking on right now. But the point is, He was definitely an excellent actor, certainly groundbreaking for actors of color. He helped to prove that actors of color could be marketable and that people would pay to see those movies and that they were worth awards and everything. I personally think even then he was still underappreciated even during his time. I think he should have been nominated for an Oscar for To Sir with Love. And I think every time he played opposite, major, white actors of the time, he held his own against them, even though he probably never had any acting lessons. And a lot of our more successful actors of color, since then, be it Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, all of them owe something to Sidney Poitier.
Well said. That was my, he, for everything, he was like the Jackie Robinson of film. He was the one. He took the lumps. He got the, dirt on his uniform. But now, thanks to that, now we have, he set the groundwork for all those other great actors and actresses of color. And his complete body of film work. A man who was the first African American man to slap a white actor on in a film in Heat of the Night, which was groundbreaking. And you really, when I think of the word groundbreaking, Sidney Poitier comes right to the top of my right to the top of my mind. Or when he was, or his performance in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, playing a African American doctor with a white fiance. It's just, or after having a great film career, taking time to become a director. To Sir with Love, made a whole generation of people like my father want to become teachers. It's just, again, like he got the appreciation, but like you said, Luke, he deserved a hell of a lot more.
Yes.
So that could also get us into a little bit of the politics of award ceremonies and what you guys have seen. You guys follow it very closely. So we are dealing with any kind of art form. There's some level of subjectiveness. People like what they like, and everybody doesn't always agree. So my question, I guess, in thinking about the politics of award ceremonies is, in each of your opinions, where do you think, who do you think maybe didn't get, who do you think got taken advantage of by the politics, maybe didn't get their due, that's not really subjective, no, this person definitely.
Okay.
Or just anything that stands out to either of you.
All right, let me preface by saying, of course, people have been complaining about Oscars so white for years now, which is only finally slowly starting to chip away. But this podcast is brought to you, remember, by 3 cis hetero white men. So when we have our gripes with the Oscars, we can only imagine how much worse it is for everybody else. So, okay. Award ceremony for art or anything else is always a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it promotes competition, it promotes people striving to be the best they can be, but because there's a business side to it, of course, there's always the notoriety that comes to it. Some people are so desperate to the notoriety that they lose all sense of honor, and they're willing to cheat, and they're willing to split things into different categories in order to eliminate the competition or say, oh, that doesn't count. There are so many rules to the Academy that are problematic. One actor who was definitely taken advantage of, in my opinion, who didn't get the recognition he deserved, was Edward G. Robinson. I don't know if this is true today, but for the longest time, the Academy and major film studios have had this understanding. Because Edward G. Robinson was a freelance actor. He could work for any studio, anytime, doing any role he wanted. And studios hated him for that. They like their contract players that they can control like their little puppets.
I'm going to pause you just for a second, because that's an interesting point. Just for like a minute or two, explain a little bit about that, so that actors were under contract with certain studios at that time.
Yes. So, when studios, because of, this is a whole other can of worms in regard to star power, but obviously star power is one of the biggest marketing tools for films. So
Right.
when you have an actor under your thumb, you see that person as your gold mine. You need your meal ticket. This is how I'm going to get the big bucks. I need this actor to play this role, whether or not he or she is appropriate for the part, just because I know people will pay to see that person's name in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to incentivize people to become contract players, even though that would limit their creative freedom as actors, they would had this little understanding with the Academy: you do not reward actors who are freelance. You only reward them if they work for us. So, that way, even if the actors could... So the actors who are under your thumb, they can only play the roles you let them play. And if they don't, if they turn it down, or if they try to work for another studio, you could sue them. And if they went completely freelance, you'd be like, okay, fine, but you're not getting any award for that. And when you're dead, most people will forget that you even existed. And one of the perfect examples, of course, was Edward G. Robinson. He should have been nominated for Little Caesar, Double Indemnity, Key Largo. He should have gotten a posthumous nomination for Soylent Green, but because he was a freelance actor his whole life, and he refused to be the little trained dog for the studios, they were like, okay, screw you. You're not getting no Oscars for you. Whereas other actors, even to this day, like Halle Berry, got an Oscar for, what was that movie?
Monsters Ball.
Monsters Ball. And then I think it was the very next year, Warner Brothers, the same studio that helped her get the Oscar, forced her to do the Catwoman movie, which was atrocious, and she got a Razzie for that. And in one of the best fingers that you could extend to the studio, when she accepted her Razzie Award, she actually brought her Oscar with her and said, I want to thank Warner Brothers for putting me in this piece of shit film. It's like, that right there perfectly sums up the double-edged sword of being a contract player, so you can get the Oscar, which looks great on your resume, but it means you are at the studio's mercy from that point on, until you leave your contract expires, or you somehow manage to negotiate a better deal somewhere else, whatever the case may be. So,
and I remember that Catwoman movie.
Yeah.
And to your point, it was, whether or not it was good or bad, it was huge.
Yes.
So, I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. And then I was going to mention, so the contract versus freelance player was definitely a huge problem. But the other thing, this is more specifically about the Oscars and the Golden Globes. Not every award faction has this problem, but there's also the difference between for the voters. There's a huge difference between active filmmakers and critics. Some awards guilds, like the BAFTAs, for example, their voters, to my knowledge, are professional critics who get paid to watch movies. And professional critics watch an average of 500 new releases a year from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So when they narrow down their top 5 choices, they're comparing you to hundreds of people from all different languages, all different... So they have a huge basis of comparison, a huge pool to pull from. Whereas the Oscars and the Golden Globes, because they're their voters are active filmmakers. And as such, they only see movies maybe as often as the rest of us. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I think I heard that the average casual film goer only sees 5 new releases in a year. Because we're more likely to rewatch the same movies over and over again because we have jobs, we have lives, we have families and everything. And because of that, we have less basis of comparison. So what might seem groundbreaking or inspiring to us, a professional critic will be like, I've seen that hundreds of times over the past decade. I've seen better. I've seen it done in another country. I've seen it done in another language. I've seen it done modern. I've seen it done old in a period story. So this is, a lot of people are quick to think that active filmmakers are better because they have more inside knowledge as to how the industry works. But because of the lack of basis of comparison, there are even rumors, and this is probably true, that when they're narrowing down, let's say, the top 5 actors or actresses of the year, when they're voting for the winner, they'll be like, I didn't even see that movie. Was it any good? Well, oh, look at this nice special gift for consideration that the studio paid for me, free champagne bottle and everything. Sure, they got my vote. You have to campaign to win an Oscar. The movie has to be screened at a certain certain prestigious cinema in Los Angeles. I forget the name of it. This is why so many independent films get overlooked because even if they have the budget to get released on the big screen, they need even more money to get to that particular cinema. This is why so many people get overlooked. And when it's that easy to bribe your way to an Oscar, to manipulate the voters to giving you something that you may not even deserve because you may not have even been that good. And there are plenty of examples of actors who clearly won because they campaigned most vigorously, not because their performance was that good.
And that's definitely the truth, what Luke said about campaigning, and you have to, and there's always been this, there's a thing, it's the Academy Award formula. Like the idea that a film that wins the Oscar for Best Picture, it had to be period piece. It has to be a war film. It has to be an epic. For years, and people, one of my favorites was there was a film. It was called The Post, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, based on a true story. There was at the beginning of the show, then somebody just came out with a wheelbarrow full of Oscars and just should we just give them all to him now? And that was an incident where what you have political film, big top starring actors, award-winning director, and political, biographical. That was all you need to do to win Best Picture. But really, and sometimes it's one of the biggest snubs of all time. People consider Saving Private Ryan one of the biggest snubs of because really Best Picture is kind of a double-edged sword. Again, not to go back, because there are so many films that once they win Best Picture, every critic in the world will, or every person with a computer will go and just rip it to pieces. Just because it won Best Picture. Then it's just, and they I know one of the ones was the year I think it's called Crash, won Best Picture. Everybody tore that movie to shreds because everyone felt the obvious pick was Brokeback Mountain. Because that got snubbed. That movie, I think you'll see it on the top of like every like hated film or hated Best Picture winner, just because it beat out other films. I mean, even the film that's considered the greatest film of all time, Luke knows what, the great Citizen Kane. Even that film did not win Best Picture, everybody. And that's considered the Citizen Kane of film.
So what do you guys feel about what I'll call like pity awards? So in other words, we take like somebody like, let's say, DiCaprio, who maybe should have won however many times. And then, he does Revenant with the bear?
The Revenant. Yeah.
Does the Revenant, throws a polar bear around for a little while, and gets that Oscar. And the whole world's like, huh?
Yeah.
So, what is the deal with that? What's the deal?
That's an instance of, and it happens a lot at the Oscars, and this instance where, again, my opinion, where, we should have given it to him this time or this time. Let's just give it to him this time. The next one, the person that always rings in my mind with that happening is Paul Newman. Paul Newman should have won the Oscar for The Hustler. He should have won it for Cool Hand Luke. He should have won it for
Cat on a
Hot Tin Roof. Yeah. He should have won it, X amount of times, but they finally give it to him when he did The Color of Money. After he was, it wasn't one of his wasn't one of his last films, but it was the later film, and I don't think compared to some of his other work, I don't think it was as great of a performance, but everybody just gave it to him. We snubbed him this many times, let's throw him a bone.
Yeah.
Henry Fonda was another one, who he should have won it, years and years ago. He didn't get it, and he wasn't even able to accept his award. He won the award. I think then his daughter had to accept it for him,
even that win, speaking of the campaigning, going back to campaigning, was also very controversial because a lot of people think, even though he was great in the film, a lot of people think that same year that Burt Lancaster should have won, and that the only reason Fonda won was because his daughter campaigned vigorously on his behalf.
Because she used that, the whole, it was his final film, and she kind of, not, he should have, won it years and years ago, but they gave it to him because, like I said, to throw him a bone.
And then another thing, and I was just reminded of this in regard to pity awards and throwing bones and everything. Because it's an award ceremony, it is very easy, infuriatingly easy to rig the contest in people's favor. You will notice in a lot of award-winning films that they technically broke the rules in order to award someone. One of the most famous examples is Marlon Brando in The Godfather. He won Best Lead Actor, even though he had less screen time and much less screen time and dialogue than Al Pacino in the same film, and Pacino got nominated for Supporting Actor. And I think that the reason they gave Brando the lead actor Oscar was not just because he was the more prestigious name and the top billed actor, because he was the oldest, most famous actor in the movie, but because that movie came out the same year as Cabaret with Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey. And I think everybody watched Cabaret and they said, oh, we know Joel Grey's going to win Best Supporting Actor. We don't want Brando to lose to that. So let's just cheat and put him in the other category, which he totally shouldn't be in, just so we can hand it to him. And And there are a lot of other actresses and actors who have won supporting Oscars that they totally should have won leads for, like Judas and the Black Messiah, which came out the same year as The Father with Anthony Hopkins. Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Steinfeld? Lakeith Steinfeld were both nominated for Best Supporting Actor. So, to everybody watching, anybody who's seen that movie, who is the lead actor in that movie who had more screen time and dialogue than either of them? Oh, that's right, there wasn't any. But they knew, Anthony Hopkins is in his 80s, and it's a really wonderful performance. But if we give it to him, they're going to complain that we're being too white again. So let's just cheat and put those two in the supporting category, even though they actually weren't. So yeah, they got the Oscar, but there was in the most undignified way that they could have handed it to them.
The one that rings that I always think of is when Viola Davis won for Fences.
Another perfect one.
In 2016, she won for Best Supporting Actress. Ladies and gentlemen, she was the only woman in that film.
Yes.
There was no other women in that film except for her. She was the only actress. And she had just as much dialogue as Denzel, just as much dialogue as any man in that production. And she won Best Supporting Actress.
Or another one, the Coen Brothers remake of True Grit, when they nominated Haley Steinfeld for Best Supporting Actress, even though she was the lead character of the movie. The list goes on, but this is an example of how they will cheat to accommodate people because, heaven forbid, they have more than 5 nominees in one category, which, again, because they're active filmmakers, that's probably all they've seen to vote on, if that. If they were professional critics and they took the time to watch however many hundreds of movies came out that year and they narrowed it down to 10, these races would be less infuriating for the rest of us to watch.
So do you feel that active filmmakers should not be able to vote? Or that the percentage of them on the panel should be smaller?
At the very least, the percentage should be smaller. They should have a say.
I agree with that.
But they shouldn't be the main voters. There should be more critics than active filmmakers. Okay. Also, in regard to the politics, and again, this is especially a huge deal in regard to racism and being progressive. I can't help noticing that the Academy really loves to reward movies that make them feel comfortable. Movies that spread the message that racism is dead, we beat it. You'll notice, for example, I think it was 2017. Was it 2018 when Green Book came out?
2018, yeah.
Okay. It's just another white savior movie, which is, it's a historical piece, but according to the family of Mahershala Ali's character in real life, they called the movie a symphony of lies.
Dr. Shirley.
Yeah, Dr. Shirley. Thank you. They said that the movie was completely way off, depicted the relationship completely wrong, that, they made his, and telling the whole story from the white guy's perspective. That same year, another movie about racism came out. Well, actually, 2 of them. Black Klansman and The Hate U Give. Both movies, one of them was a period piece, but both movies were much more haunting, and they sent the message, racism is systemic, it's a big problem, and it's still happening today. Black Klansman was nominated for several Oscars, but didn't win. As it lost, best supporting actor and best picture to Green Book. And The Hate U Give, which is a modern movie and told everything from the oppressed minority's perspective, didn't get nominated for anything.
Nothing at all. Not a Golden Globe, not a Critics' Choice, nothing.
And it's because most of the in regard to representation, not just that they're not all professional critics, but you got to wonder how many of them are probably white, and they don't want to sleep at night that movie scared me. It made me realize that I'm not working actively hard enough to, in the way I vote and the candidates that I support and everything. No, I want this movie that makes me feel safe. I'm going to vote for Green Book. And I'm furious with that choice, and I'm a white guy. I can only imagine how much worse it makes everybody else feel.
that goes into the whole body of films that are the white savior films, the Dances with Wolves, the Driving Miss Daisies, I mean, you can go on forever.
Or even in regard to some of those films, how you'll notice a pattern with some people who win the Oscars, like Octavia Spencer has won several Oscars for playing the supportive black friend.
That should just be a category at this point.
Pretty much.
I mean, you're playing stereotypical roles.
Yes.
Yes. Like a lot of people, the woman who won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar in for Gone with the Wind. She was the first African American actress to win the Oscar. Everybody said, she had to, people had to call in favors just to get her into the building. Mm-hmm. And everybody said, don't you feel bad or angry about winning for playing a stereotype? And you weren't you were almost not even let in the building. They said, I won an Oscar and I was paid $1,000 more than what people who who really do that work. At the end of the day, I'm a happy camper.
Okay. So you could say that to her back then because that was the only option they had. But today they should. But after that groundwork, they should have so many better options today.
You have to remember that was in
the 30s.
30s, yeah.
Hattie McDaniel.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't think of her.
No, that's fine. So one thing that I think about in the terms of this is that all these movies that we're mentioning that have won. So Driving Miss Daisy beat out Do the Right Thing for an Oscar, which is very similar to the point you're making. About here's the safe movie beating the movie that's a little bit harder to swallow.
A little controversial.
And one thing that I'm, again, coming from the perspective of being outside the culture, but like how many more slavery movies? How many more? How many? See,
12 Years
I'm
a Slave.
getting uncomfortable. Let alone being a person who has that in there. Like, why do you need to keep reminding us all?
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that it happened, and I'm not saying this to bury it, but let's I may not ever need to see Hidden Figures again.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it exists because it's just an alternative to just oppression, slavery, victim. Like there are a lot of good stories. Start making movies about those.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We've previously touched on I forget which podcast it was, but we previously touched on the subject of colorblind casting. On the one hand, we're afraid that it's going to be used to appeal to the Oscars, like, oh, look at us, we have the token black guy doing a stereotype role. Where's our Oscar? But two recent movies that gave me a little bit of faith. One was, I think it was the Personal History of David Copperfield, I think, with Dev Patel in the lead. Okay, that was an example of good colorblind casting because none of it felt forced. They were just like, let's just pick the best actors for these roles. Color and ethnicity be darned. And it worked. And then this past year we had the Coen Brothers Macbeth where they had Denzel Washington in the lead. And it didn't feel like, oh, let's put him in just so that we have a black guy. It's like, let's pick him because he's the best, because we want to see Denzel Washington do Shakespeare. He's done it before. Let's see him do it again. And it didn't feel forced. It wasn't reminding us, see, look at the oppression of the black. It's like, no, it's just a Shakespeare story that just happens to have a guy who's black.
Right. And
more of this, please.
And we also touched on this at a future past podcast. But my opinion, the only way we're going to get there is if we stop, mainly racially, but gender to a degree too. If I see a film that has an all-black cast, I cannot be assumed that, oh, this is a black movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has happened.
Yes.
Now, and I always use this as an example, but the movie The Best Man stars Taye Diggs, and there's a lot of other big names that I can't remember now. Best Man and Best Man Holiday. All black cast for the most part. And it's a really good movie. Like it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's light, it has its heavy moments. Like I see the first one and the second one as just nice, well-rounded pictures that anybody could enjoy because the characters are going through human experiences. And I recently thought the same thing a little bit about gender, which the gap might be a little bit bigger. But I was watching the sitcom Living Single not too long ago. And I like that show. And that show is predominantly female characters as opposed to male. There's 4 female main characters and 2 male main characters. So somebody brought something up to me about that. Said, well, this is a woman's show. Okay, fine. But let's think about some other shows. So, Seinfeld. 3 men to 1 woman. Another popular show, let's say Frasier. 3 men to 2 women. Most sitcoms are disproportionately male-led as opposed to female-led. And women watch those shows.
Mm-hmm.
So what's wrong with it being the other way around?
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with it.
So until we stop saying that's a girl show, this is a black movie, this is a Latin movie, that if we could just break that down and watch a movie for a movie and not have it be like you're saying with Denzel doing Shakespeare, not having it have to be race specific, just have it be people doing stuff.
Yes.
You know?
And to be clear, this is not our way of saying stop celebrating culture that, cultural history associated with that ethnicity. But at the same time, we do have to, don't let that be their only defining characteristic.
Exactly. You get what I'm putting down. So let's get into some recommendations.
Okay.
I could start. If you guys want to get your thoughts together.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So being that we're on award ceremonies, of course, it's at the bottom of my pile, I'm picking a movie that won awards at the Toronto International Film Festival, Passion Play, which stars Mickey Rourke, Megan Fox, and Bill Murray. It is one of the strangest pictures I've ever seen, and that's why I like it. In a nutshell, Mickey Rourke is a semi-retired, drug-addled jazz musician who stumbles upon a freak show that we don't know is real or not, and finds a living, breathing angel played by Megan Fox. But evil is afoot because Bill Murray, the crooked carnival worker, circus guy, wants to steal Megan Fox away because he wants the angel in his show. So, love is stronger than death. That's the little tagline for Passion Play, and this was 2011. My sister and I watched this movie at an attempt to stay up all night one night, and we both had nightmares about the movie when we went to sleep. When we finally did go to sleep, we both had dreams about the movie. Hers was more of a nightmare. Mine was just a dream. But that's my pick, Passion Play. Mickey Rourke, Megan Fox, Bill Murray. Very strange picture.
Okay.
Follow that.
All right. Since we're trying to promote films that were overlooked by these award ceremonies, I'm just gonna have to go with what I mentioned earlier: The Hate You Give. I think it definitely should have been nominated for it. Well, for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's based on a book, takes place, within the past decade, showing that racism is still alive. So yes, it is a movie about racism, but it's not a white savior movie. It's told from the oppressed minority's perspective. It's a predominantly black film with only a few minor, non-black characters in it. It shows the nitty-gritty of why racism is a problem. It's not just bad apples. They show how it's ingrained in the system, how it affects American policing and criminal justice policies, and all while giving us very empathetic, wonderful characters and spectacular performances that we can enjoy. It's probably going to be one of those movies so disturbing that you don't want to watch it more than once, but you will be glad you saw it.
Okay. I'm going to go along with those same lines. A film for me that I think was completely snubbed by every award show. It was a film. It was called Queen and Slim. It stars Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith. It was directed by Melanie Matasukas. It came out in 2019. It was one of those movies. I literally just saw it because I just felt like seeing a movie. I saw it in the movie theater, and a lot of people refer to it as the Black Bonnie and Clyde. I thought it was a very powerful film. I don't know if I compare it. I don't call it Bonnie and Clyde. It's about young two. They're not even a couple. They're people they met on the internet, and they meet for dinner. She plays. She's a lawyer, and he works at a store, and they just met on the internet, and are out on a date. He's driving her home, and from the looks of it, it wasn't exactly the best date in the world. And they get pulled over by a police officer, a white police officer, and like I said, Jodie Turner-Smith plays an attorney. So she's saying, why are we being pulled over? She's questioning all this stuff. Why this guy? And he has Daniel Kaluuya outside, putting cuffs on him, throwing him against the car, and frisking him. And she goes to try to take a picture of him. He pulls his gun. The officer pulls his gun out, shoots her, and Daniel Kaluuya grabs a hold of the gun. The gun goes off, and just like that, he kills a police officer, a white police officer, nonetheless. And then the whole film is pretty much two people who, just met each other on the run from police, who think they're, then you have people thinking that they're radicals, that they're trying to start a movement, and really it was nothing of the kind. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was overlooked. I thought that both actor and actress's performances were fantastic, and I highly recommend it.
Nice. I haven't seen either of those, so I'm gonna now want to see them.
Okay.
There was a question I wanted to bring up, and this is as good as anything to close. So we covered the award ceremonies in this episode. We talked about their flaws individually. So now that we've talked about all that, why if and this isn't something that only the three of us talk about, only the three of us know. So why have award ceremonies then? If the favoritism is to the point where it's public knowledge, and we scratch our heads over this award and get angry that this one didn't happen. Do you think that there's a reason to even have them?
I think, especially today when, for better and for worse, and in these strangest ways, it is becoming easier for people to make movies. Not necessarily to break into the industry and make big movies, but to make movies, period. Something, I think, it is kind of a necessary evil to keep people in line, to prevent us from just making lazy schlock. And I think, and I'm not saying that, movies that are made just mindless entertainment, or even as Martin Scorsese put it when he presented the AFI Life Achievement Award ceremony to Mel Brooks, it's okay to make movies just for the laughs. But we still need some bar set high enough that people are still putting effort into it, and that we don't ever slip into this mindset of, I'm just making whatever I feel like because I want to, and I am not putting any more effort into it than I have to. I think an awards ceremony is better than just the budget and the contractual obligation, because those are more likely to force people to do things they don't want to do, or maybe even make bad movies just to fit this mold to appeal to the producers and the stockholders and everything. Award ceremonies at least attempt to appeal, to get people to try harder for the masses, for the longevity. That being said, some award ceremonies, especially the ones that have actual critics on the voting board, do it much better than others, and we need more of that.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
I think award ceremonies are, it's hard. I don't want to put it this way, but it's the only way I can think to put it. A necessary evil. You might not have, that film that, gets the Oscar love, but, then you can, check out the ones that get the Sundance Film Festival Award, or the
BAFTAs.
The BAFTAs. You have the people who get, the love from the Independent Spirit Awards. You can always, and you can see those type of films, and get appreciation. Because, it's great to, just be a part of films, and just, just acting, just act. But I think, in some perspective, you always, when you hear that, something you did was submitted into a film festival, or, the possibility, I think that does, as an actor, I think, that does, give you, like a little just like, oh, I wonder what they'll think. Or I hope they like it.
Yeah. Which is at the rawest core is what every artist wants. What do they think? I hope they like it. It's at the bottom. It's right in there, the smallest microbe.
Now I'm thinking about it might sound egotistical, things like that, but at the end of the day, doing theater, you don't do it, because you don't, not like hearing the applause from the audience.
I would come home from school, and I had a plastic lunchbox, this old 90s plastic lunchboxes, and in order to tell my mother my day, she would sit down, and I'd put this lunchbox down on the floor, and I'd stand on it and tell her my day, as if the lunchbox was a stage. So I feel like that's always what it is. No matter how big somebody might get, whether they're doing local shows or Broadway shows, that little kid on the lunchbox is always in there somewhere. And I think your points are good, and that people should know that the Oscars are not the end-all be-all for a movie that has won awards or might be good.
Yeah, just because an Oscar, just because a film wins an Oscar, doesn't mean it's the greatest thing in the world.
And just because a movie didn't win an Oscar doesn't automatically mean it's bad.
There you go. Well, this has been a solid episode, guys. We've come back strong. So yeah, thanks for coming on and talking about this, and we'll have you back on soon.
Looking forward to it.
Sounds like a plan.
There you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Planet Shivers podcast. Next episode is a big one. Jazz musician Bill Crow comes on the podcast, and he has a lot of stories to tell. So you don't want to miss that one. Until next time, you can find this podcast and more on all major podcast platforms and YouTube with video. Now, when I say all podcast platforms, what do I mean? I mean iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and a few more. And again, YouTube with the video if you want something to look at while you're listening. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.